When I first joined First Solar in 2011, the world was a very different place. At the time, the industry was on the verge of bust that followed in 2012. Countries across Europe were doing away with expensive feed-in tariff programs and embracing competitive tenders. In fact, as many of you will know, France launched the first of several procurement rounds that year. It was not uncommon for utility-scale solar power purchase agreements to hover around $100 per megawatt hour, while rooftop feed-in tariffs were 3 times as expensive. While still costly, solar energy was already steadily moving away from simply being a nice-to-have. Fast forward just over half a decade, and the picture is dramatically different. Utility-scale PPA prices under $60 per megawatt hour are now the norm in most sunny markets around the world. Now there are over 300 gigawatts of solar power installed globally, which is almost 3 times as much as France's total electrical generation capacity. The conversion has noticeably shifted from solar being an add-on to being an essential component of any power generation portfolio, able to stand shoulder to shoulder with any other type of technology. And why not? Solar PV has never been as economically attractive as it is today. In fact, it is so competitive that even hydrocarbon-rich countries such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are making multi-gigawatt commitments to solar while simultaneously phasing out fuel subsidies. It also takes less time to deploy solar than any other generation technology, making it ideal for developing countries that are looking to ramp up power generation and deliver energy access. What's more is that all the evidence points towards utility-scale solar PV contributing to grid stability, something we have seen firsthand with multiple gigawatts of solar-connected power plants we operate in the United States. And all this while being inherently clean and environmentally sustainable. Although the solar industry has experienced demand volatility, and until quite recently, oversupply, the one thing we can all agree on is that PV will only continue to grow, quite feasibly achieving a dominant position in the energy mix. Here in Europe, you've already surpassed 100 gigawatts of installed PV and account for roughly a third of the world's total solar capacity. While some would say that the amount of PV installed per year is declining from the subsidy-fueled heydays before 2011, I would argue that replacing feed-in tariffs with competitive tender-based procurement has made this market far more economically sustainable. And while Europe is no longer a manufacturing hub for solar panels, it is a major investor and exporter of solar expertise to countries around the world. As a matter of fact, Europe's solar industry currently employs an estimated 120,000 people, and that number is set to more than double to 300,000 by 2030. Today, French companies such as Neoen, whose CEO, Xavier Barbier, is with us here today, EDF Renewable Energy, and Enren have led the European players in expanding overseas. And we are proud to enable a number of these companies. For instance, we worked with Xavier's company Neoen to secure what was at the time the lowest priced solar PPA in sub-Saharan Africa when we successfully bid for a utility scale project in Zambia. More recently, EDF Renewable Energy acquired 2 projects, a total of 179 megawatts, from us in the United States, and we're also supplying the modules for a number of their plants in the United States and internationally. First Solar modules will also power one of the largest PV hybrid facilities in the world, developed by Iran at the gold mine in Burkina Faso. From Australia to the United States and virtually every solar market in between, European companies are advising on, engineering, developing, constructing, and operating solar power assets. Whether they are by design or simply a byproduct of entrepreneurism, the achievement of Europe's solar energy sector in markets around the world must be embraced and encouraged. Significantly, European policies and regulations on renewables are seen as the benchmark to follow by many other countries, are in many ways another important export. For instance, we will tell anyone willing to listen that France's emphasis on environmental sustainability as part of the procurement process for solar energy is the best practice that should be replicated not only around Europe, but in other regions of the world. While many other markets encourage a race to the bottom on costs, France has shown that it can procure competitively priced solar without compromising its environmental goals, simply by incentivizing lower carbon solar. I've even drawn a parallel between France's approach and that of large multinational companies that are investing in renewable energy, balancing economics and sustainability. Similarly, moves towards integrating electricity markets and facilitating cross-border tenders could serve as a model for other economic blocs. And what does the future hold for solar? I'm certain that Dr. Franco will have some interesting answers to that question, but permit me to share my perspective. Firstly, I believe that innovation will drive growth, which is why we have committed ourselves and invested over $1 billion in research and development. This has resulted in a groundbreaking Series 6 product that will be rolled out next year, a module that is another of our significant contributions to the energy transition, offering our customers in France and beyond superior performance and the lowest environmental footprint in the industry at the most competitive cost. At the time when work to decarbonize the energy mix is picking up pace in France and across Europe, innovation in the PV industry will be critical to enabling these efforts by driving up efficiencies of modules, driving down cost, and making the economics unbeatably attractive. The ability to innovate will also define which players can survive the industry's eventual consolidation. Secondly, if battery storage technology continues to its current price trajectory and the economics improve, the dream of delivering solar power long after the sun has set each day will become a reality. Thirdly, as PV solar becomes the dominant power generation technology, it will be even more critical to invest in low carbon solar, as France is already doing. There may be a time in the future when a clear distinction is made between clean and cleaner solar. What does all this mean for Europe and France? In my opinion, it makes absolute sense to aim higher than the existing target of having 27% of Europe's power generation from renewables by 2030. This is certainly not about competing with other regions of the world. It is not only about carbon reduction commitments, it's about making the right economic decisions. Additionally, Europe in general and France in particular must acknowledge the role that the companies based here will play in driving forward the growth of solar in Africa, Latin America, the Middle East, and Asia. This means that France must stay the course in its commitment to lower carbon solar while sharing its approach within its international spheres of influence. The CRE tender system clearly works, and there is much that can be learned from the French experience in procuring solar. On one final note, I would like to say thank you for your time today. It will be an honor to share the stage with Madam Schwartz, Xavier, and Dr. Franco as we discuss the role of solar power in helping France deliver on its low-carbon ambitions. Thank you.